Today we're going to continue our discussion on the planet. Only this time I'm going to talk about the people on this planet. There are two kinds of people, right? There are two kinds of people. There are the human people and there are the star people. Now, for a long time, the star people have been presumed to be a super advanced race. And they came in all kind of shapes and sizes, and some might be interdimensional, some might be balls of light, and some have gray skin. There are all kinds of star people according to what we've been discussing. And that is in stark contrast to human people. Right? Humans have a very distinct look, and there are many races of humans. So there's a stark contrast between humans and stellans. I call stellans. That is the common discussion. That is what most people are familiar with. But there is a secret that no one else really understands. And that's because there's just not enough evidence to substantiate it. But as you know, I like to talk about things that I am aware of, things that I've learned, and I have a deep connection to all kinds of stellans, beings, spirits. And they tell me things at the appropriate time. I've had a lot of interaction with star beings, star people, since I was very small, since I was a child, near a child. And I've met many different kinds. But there's this one secret, there's this one thing that needs to be understood. And it connects to the idea that we live on a space colony, right? This is a habitable planet, Earth, among billions of planets in the galaxies. There are millions of habitable planets. We are on one of these habitable planets in one solar system, orbiting one star at nearly 70,000 miles an hour. It's like the Indy 500, the Indy 70,000. So we live on a space colony, a colonized planet. This is important. This is an important part of understanding real star people, because there are star people and star beings that have distinct looks that do not look human, and they have powers, and they're very advanced, even billions of years ahead of human culture. There are those people. But there are also many cultures, star cultures, let's say, spacefaring people who, by all accounts, look human, who are our ancestors, Who are our distant neighbors, long lost cousins? So this is the funny thing when we talk about star people, stellans, right? It's not only these awkward, unique looks, but star people are humans. We are the descendants of spacefaring humans that look human. Well, we've changed, we've evolved. We evolved, we've adapted to our environment, and we have our unique looks. But generally speaking, we look human. And if you go to other planets, you will find other human-looking races. So, again, this is still a relatively new discussion. This is still a relatively new theory. But think about it. Think about it. How many languages are spoken on the earth? It's in the neighborhood of 6,000. 6,000 languages. Did they all originate from the earth? Did human beings invent de novo 6,000 languages? Did advanced space being teach us their languages? Or my theory is that the people from other planets who look human, when they came here, they brought different languages. That's my theory. That's what I understand. That's what makes sense to me. Now, they may have come here a long time ago, and we have forgotten. Maybe they came here 5,000 years ago. Maybe they came here 3,000 years ago. We have forgotten. That memory is gone. Most people don't remember what they had for breakfast last week. So 3,000 years ago, we forgot, and a lot of that memory has been, a lot of the history has been removed, because that would interfere with our personal evolution until such point that we've reached the point where we can accept and understand these things. So, long time ago, human-looking people from other planets came here and colonized. Some of them came here as immigrants. Some of them came here as refugees. Some of them came here for a visit and then stayed. Some of them came here escaping persecution. Some of them came here to bring knowledge and develop and terraform and build cities. And they brought knowledge of cities. They brought knowledge of agriculture, technology, you name it. But a lot of that came from other planets. And a lot of this migration took place in our past. Maybe it's our ancient past, maybe we go back 20,000 years. These were far more advanced cultures 20,000 years ago. You look at the Aztecs and the Mayans. They're human looking, but they're extremely advanced. So some of humans are descendants of these people. So they are not, technically they're not these people, because they are descendants, and then they evolved here on the earth, and they lost some of that knowledge, some of those genetics. And maybe some of that was removed so that they could adapt and live here. So you look at the cultures here, you look at the Mexican culture. You look at the Chinese culture. You look at the Indian culture. The Burmese. You look at many African cultures. And then you look at, the French and the Spanish and the Italian and the Germans. You have all these cultures. Well, did human beings start off as one homogeneous group and then split off, suddenly became, did Adam and Eve suddenly have a Chinese baby? And then an African baby, and then an Indian baby? Or, my theory, which makes a lot more sense, people from other planets came here and colonized. They settled here, settlers, right? When they discovered America, immigrants came, settlers came, and the settlers fought with the indigenous people. Well, who were the indigenous people? Were they here from the beginning, or were the indigenous people also settlers and colonists? More advanced colonists that we call indigenous. They came here to take care of the land. And then other settlers came here. So you see this colonization. It happens across history. It happens across time. It happened in our past, sometimes in our ancient past. I think that if you go back 20,000 years, the people who came here were far more advanced. But they had children. They had offspring. And the offspring were genetically modified. And there was hybridization. And so the offspring started to diverge from the parents, right? At some point, over centuries, over millennia, right? If we go back 20,000 years, offspring were similar, but over time, cultures die off. People leave. Just because a culture comes here doesn't mean you have to stay here, right? You might move to a different country and you might stay there 20 years, but eventually you might go back to your own country. So cultures may have come here, the Olmecs, the Aztecs, the Mayans, right? The Navajo, the Nordics, the Vikings, right? They may have come here and stayed for a period of time, created the culture. Maybe they were escaping persecution. Maybe they had problems on their home planet. Maybe they were stranded here. Maybe they were looking after the earth, helping it to grow and stabilize and terraform. We don't know, right? We don't know. That science is lost. And we know they're more advanced. But over centuries or millennia, they decided to go back home. And they packed all their stuff and they took everything with them, so there's no trace. There's no spaceship left. Not on the surface, not where we can find it. And then other races came. So my theory is that the Chinese race, the Indian race, the Mexicans, the Iranians, the Burmese, the African, the French, the Spanish, the Italians, all of these races. My theory is that these people came from other planets. And they came here to live. They came here to colonize. Come to Earth! It's lush green with beautiful water and fresh oxygenated air. Bring your families. Get your land. Help us develop cities. There was a sales pitch. And for whatever reason, people travel. When you have access to spaceships, you're going to travel to different planets. When you have access to boats and planes, you go to different cities. The reason why you go to a different city, even for just a vacation, is because there's an airplane. If you had to walk, you won't go that far, right? And sometimes you take a road trip, you take your car, but you can't take your car across the ocean. You need a boat. So we have access to different locations, different places, because of these transportation vehicles. And so these other cultures had access to spaceships. These spaceships could take them to different planets. Now, if you are a more advanced race, because you have spaceships, and you fly all the way to Earth, and they don't have spaceships, and they're still at war, and they don't have mobile phones, and they don't have sewers, right? And they're afraid of anything off planet. They're afraid of new things, and they're very simple cultures. You don't tell them you came on a spaceship. Or if you do, you know what's going to happen. What normally happens is they believe you, and then they don't believe you, and then they kill you. Right? That's the way it is, right? Ah, you came from spaceship. Fly from here to there, yes. You're a liar. You're crazy. And then the whole town, get them, right? The pitchforks. He came from spaceship, he's a demon. He's a demon, he came from spaceship. So, at some point, someone realized we better not mention the spaceships. Put away the phaser gun. Don't talk about spaceship or time travel. And for God's sakes, don't mention past life. At some point, the people came here and they didn't say certain things. But they told stories. We have some stories. We have legends. We have stories that don't really say anything that would cause people to get upset. And a story is a myth. It can have many interpretations, and we like the stories. We like myths, but because it's a fiction, or is it fiction? And so thousands of years have passed. We still have some of these myths. The gods, the Greek gods, who looked human. The Greek gods look human. They don't look like space aliens and star beings that, they don't look like, they don't like insects. And they don't have a weird look. They're not little gray beings. The Greek gods look human. The Roman gods, the angels look human. Ancient paintings. Angels look human. Angels speak English. Or they speak the language of the culture. So you get these languages, you get Hebrew. And you get Farsi. And you get all of these thousands of languages and all of these cultures. They make their home on this space colony. So what does that mean? It means that if you look at an African culture, you're going to find that those people have a home on another planet somewhere. That they're descendants of people from another planet. And they look very similar. They don't have the same understanding or the same knowledge. But, if somebody grows up in a different country, there's a different culture, there's a different language. You think different. You dress different. You look different. You don't know as much as the other guy. But there's a connection. So, same with all the cultures on the earth came from different planets. Now, you might have two cultures come from the same planet, but they're distinct cultures. They're interstellar cultures from history, from ancient history. Ancient history, my interpretation is, we have forgotten. That knowledge has been lost. Because, the children, the children of children of children of children of children, you forget stuff. Right now, it's hard for most people to relate to their grandparents. Right? We don't think the same as our grandparents. They didn't have computers. They didn't have an iPhone. They didn't have an internet. Now, our great-grandparents, they had nothing. They were a lot shorter. They lived shorter lives. They didn't have access to the medicine we have. They didn't have vitamins. They were a much sturdier, hardier constitution. They knew how to take care of themselves. They knew how to build things. You give someone a hammer today and they don't know what to do with it. What? Did you buy it on Amazon? So now, okay, imagine your great-great-grandparents. They're completely different than you. From you. They're different. There's no connection. We could not relate to if they were still alive, we could not understand our great-great-grandparents. You made your own clothes? Great-great-grandma. You built the house you live in? I live in an apartment. I buy my clothes. Right? You ever heard of polyester? Polyester no good. Wool. I took the wool from the sheep. It's completely different. Now you go back great-great-great-great-great-grandparents. No idea. There's no way to understand them. It's like, they're basically myth. It's a myth. Your great-great-great-grandfather Thor, he had a magic hammer. Okay. Sure. Back when the days when magic and fire were real. Right? At some point it becomes a myth. Just like you go to the ancient cities. You go to Egypt, the pyramids. Right? It's a culture that was able to do this stuff. It's a culture that came on spaceships. The pharaohs came on spaceships. The pharaohs were very advanced spacefaring people. Some of them stayed here and lived here, and many others didn't stay here, and they would fly back and forth. That's my theory, yes. That's my understanding. The spacefaring humans. We are the descendants of many cultures from many planets. Right? In addition to that, there are these more advanced star beings that don't look human. But we come from spacefaring people who look human. Who, if they walked among us, you would not know if they're just here for a visit from another planet. They could come here and spend the weekend and speak the language and you know, drive a car and have a coffee, and you would not know that they came from another planet. And even if they were to tell you, which they wouldn't, because they know the consequence, if they were to tell you, you wouldn't believe them. Because they look human. They're not walking on water. They're not carrying their phaser rifles. They're not teleporting in and out. They just look human, right? So this is going on today. There are these people who come here. Sometimes they come here to visit. Sometimes they come here to bring knowledge. Sometimes they come here to visit their family. Maybe they have children here or descendants. So there are these also star families that have kept in contact, and they will reach out. So we often get caught up into this myth and fear about star beings, that there are these weird-looking star people and they're super advanced, and there are these interdimensionals that they have their weird way of talking to us, and we have all this stuff which gets in the way of the most basic star being, is a human being. Is a human being. There are humans in space. Not just from the Earth, but on other planets. And one day, when the space fleet technology is shown to us, we will fly, and I'm sure they have video of this. We can fly to another planet, and you will find it's populated with human-looking people. And they might speak Spanish. They might speak a derivative of Spanish. Right? Maybe the Spanish here is a little more purified, simplified. They might speak Hebrew. They might speak a mix of Spanish and Hebrew. They might look like you, and they might look like me. They might look like a combination of you and me. So we're going to eventually, we're still a young planet. We are a young civilization. We are a young colony. And we've gone through different ages, and knowledge has been lost. Memories have been cleaned out. Right? So we've gone through many stages as a colony. In this particular stage, we're still very young. We're not aware of our true heritage. Our heritage is interstellar, because we are a space colony. We were colonized. We live on a colonized planet. And there's many different cultures here. So if you had a culture from one planet who was an enemy with a culture from another planet, and both those cultures came here, those two cultures, they would never get along, because they came from planets that never got along. And they came here, and they still don't like each other. There are certain people, certain races, they don't like each other, because they came from different planets. Again, Adam and Eve didn't have an Indian baby, a Chinese baby, a black baby. Okay? I think that's common sense. I mean, unless I'm missing something. Now, the human beings, there is this other protocol which we've talked about, that sometimes a more advanced star being will inhabit a human being. So you could have a human being embodying the soul of a star being. So there's that. So that's not everybody. So there's a group. There are people here, humans, right, that are basically star beings in human form. And those are more advanced star beings. And we've discussed this. So those are more advanced, and they're here on missions, and they have a more explicit purpose, and they come here on purpose. They come here with it's by choice. And some of those, because of the system, they've gotten lost. They've fallen off the track. They've forgotten who they are. They're disconnected. They're in mental institutions. They're on drugs. You know, they're not all in great situations, unfortunately, right? And then we can continue. There's a lot of mud in the water, right? You get into my lab. There's a lot of mud in the water. And so we get lost in the details. So that's why I want to go back. We live on a space colony, and this planet was colonized by human-looking people. And more advanced races may have genetically engineered human-looking people. So there could be races, cultures here that were genetically engineered by very advanced races. And they look human, and after thousands of years, they are a culture. Right? So there could be cultures here that were genetically engineered. And there are many cultures here that came from other planets. And then there are cultures that have intermixed and interbred. And then, you know, we get into the synthetic cultures. There's lots of business. There's lots of business on a planet. And it's very easy to get lost if you get into the details and you get into the negatives. So I think let's look at the bigger picture. You know, let's think about the bigger picture. There's a lot more going on than we realize. So welcome to Space Colony Earth. I hope you've enjoyed your stay.